On behalf of Ocean Gems, I'd like to say welcome to each and every one of you. My name is Danny Washington, and I'm the host of Ocean Gems. And we are all about connecting youth, just like you, to marine science mentors. So we're very excited to be here at the Blue Ocean Film Festival today in beautiful St. Petersburg, Florida. We really believe in the power of film. We believe that it has the power to change many things in our world, especially when it comes to ocean issues. It's up to this next generation to help solve those issues. By a show of hands, I would love to know how many of you have ever considered being a marine scientist. Show of hands, let's see it. Or marine biologist, yes? Awesome. Guess what? Today we are launching something very special. Ocean Gems is really proud to present the kickoff of our very first live Google Hangout on air, which is actually being live streamed on YouTube right now. We've got students from around the country and the world, and they're directly looking for experiences to speak to experienced marine scientists and how they got to where they are today. So the goal of today is to give you an opportunity to speak to these scientists and to ask them questions as well. Just to give you an idea of who's watching, let's do through a quick roll call with all of our viewers online. So I'd like to start out joining us from the Aquarium of the Pacific in Long Beach, California. Let's say hello to Santiago High School and A.B. Miller High Schools. Hey guys. Hi. Cool. Next we have Adelante Charter School in Santa Barbara, California. Can we say hi to Adelante? In our landlocked states, we actually have Hemville School in Montana. Hello, Hemville. Last but not least, we have an international group all the way from Guelph, Ontario, Canada. Let's say hello to Guelph. Well, we are very excited to have such a diverse array of students from all over the world today. And whether you're participating with us live or if you're watching on YouTube, we'd like to encourage you to tweet or follow us on Instagram or on Facebook and use the hashtag Ocean Dream Careers today and stay connected with us during this forum and beyond. So before we move on to our featured speakers, I'd like to take a moment to welcome Ms. Samantha Joye. She is a Ph.D. from the University of Georgia who's going to help us with our introduction. And I'm really excited for you guys to meet all of our mentors. We actually have two mentors who are going to be live streaming from Google Hangouts with us from two different locations. We'll introduce them in a moment. But the way that we envision the next few moments, we're going to do some Q&A at the end, but first we'll hear from our speakers. So I'd like to invite Ms. Samantha Joye up to this stage. Let's give her a round of applause.
So good afternoon, and wow, it's so great to see so many excited young faces here. When I was your age, I was already in love with the ocean. My family spent about 6 weeks every summer at the ocean in South Carolina near Myrtle Beach. Before it was Myrtle Beach. It used to be a salt marsh. It was quite beautiful. Now it's a big concrete city of not salt marshes. But I fell in love with the ocean, canoeing and kayaking and fishing in those marshes. And I never really imagined that you could have a career as a marine scientist at that point. I don't even think I knew what marine sciences was really until I was in college. And when I entered college, I was going to be a doctor. Because my parents thought that was a reasonable thing to do. And then my junior year, I took an oceanography class by a professor named Conrad Newman, and he was filled with this explosive, fiery love for the ocean. And it just spread among every student in the room. You could tell from the first day that we were all just going to be changed forever. And Conrad and I remain good friends to this day. He is the person that I credit for changing my life and making me believe that, you know, not only could I be an oceanographer, but I should be an oceanographer. And I've been at the University of Georgia for about 16 years now. I work on hydrocarbon dynamics in the ocean, so oil and gas cycling by these tiny little microorganisms that you can't even see unless you use a microscope. But they're responsible for cleaning up gas and oil that seep naturally from the seabed into the water column. I was involved very significantly in the aftermath of the Deepwater Horizon blowout, which you guys probably remember, though some of you were 5 years ago, so How many of you remember the Deepwater Horizon? The Deepwater Horizon oil spill. How many of you remember it? Okay. So, yeah. It was a big deal. So I started scuba diving when I was 18 years old, when I started college. But I was a free diver way before that. I was free diving probably at age 8. As soon as I got my first set of a mask and a snorkel, I was in the water. And I've watched over my lifetime the oceans go from a paradise rich with fish and all kinds of animals, corals and seagrasses, to almost a desert. And it changes you when you've seen what it was like, 30 or so years ago to what it's like today. And what it's like today for you is going to change in the opposite direction if each one of you takes action and makes a goal, a personal goal for yourself to do something that makes the ocean, that makes the world a better place. So I was inspired to be a marine scientist, as I said, by this professor that I had in college. But you in this room, you might be inspired by somebody that you meet at this conference. You might be inspired by a science teacher that you have in school. You might be inspired by a scientist that you hear talk in a museum. You might be inspired by a book that you read or a movie that you see. Wherever your inspiration comes from, follow that spirit, follow that inspiration. Take that fire and carry it with you and do something with it. And I think that each of you, whether you're a young man or a young woman, you have equal opportunities today to pursue careers in marine sciences. It's always going to be a little bit harder on women because you've got another role in your life, and that is to be a mom to your children. I have 3 little girls. They call me the ocean doctor, and they tell all their friends that my job is to save the ocean. Well, that's a pretty darn big job, and I can't do it by myself. I need people like you to help. And the people who are at this conference, they're all committed to this big job of saving the ocean. And that's why we're here. That's why we're in this room today having this discussion. And I look forward to taking any questions that you guys might have in a little bit.
All right, great. Thank you so much, Dr. Joye. Really appreciate your words there. By pursuing a career not only in marine science, but any of the science, technology, engineering, or math courses, what we call STEM, you guys have such a great opportunity to transform our knowledge and grasp a deeper understanding of how we all together can build a brighter future for everybody. You're at such a great time in our world now because you have the ability to go forward and find something that fuels your passion to increase this knowledge of ours and make the planet a better place. But what's really important is to have a role model, someone you can look up to, or a mentor. Role models have great impact on a person's career choice. I know I had a role model when I was trying to decide what to do. But a lot of people seem to lack role models today. How many of you have somebody that you look up to and say, I want to be just like that person? Good for you. It might be your mom or dad or somebody in the community. It might be somebody on TV. The other thing that's important to have is a mentor. And mentors are important advisors for young people who benefit from their guidance and support as you create your own goals and pathways to choosing your careers. So do any of you have a mentor who gives you some advice and helps you? A few of you, great. Great, well that's what we're here to do, is help you with mentors. Ocean Gems is here to provide role models and mentors via digital video platforms such as this Google Hangout on air today. And we can do that to youth all around the world. It's one of the amazing things about being here in this day and age is that we can communicate with the entire planet over digital technology. We couldn't do that when we were kids. This way we can reach so many young people who might be interested in exploring careers and different options in the marine sciences, and in having a mentor to help guide their path. So, one of the things we'll help you do is to navigate your course to follow your goals. What exactly is Ocean Gems? Do you know? GEMS means go explore marine science, and that's what Ocean Gems is all about. I'm going to let my partner, marine wildlife cinematographer, in other words, a guy who makes underwater films about fish and whales and all those critters that live in the ocean, Tom Campbell, tell you a little more about the program and how it got started. Tom and I have traveled the world together. We've filmed some of the most amazing and incredible creatures that you almost can't even imagine, and the scientists at work who study these incredible creatures that call our planet home along with us. And it's very important for us to include the scientists in our films because we want to make sure we get our information correct. So, I would like to introduce to you cinematographer and underwater diver extraordinaire, my partner, Tom Campbell.
Thank you very much, Beth. Well, welcome, boys and girls. We're very happy that you could come here today, and I hope that you get something from this. Over the last 45 years or so, I've had the opportunity to have a career that's allowed me to travel pretty much to the world, as Beth said. It's afforded me many opportunities, not just to produce programs for Discovery Channel or National Geographic or the BBC and people like that, but it's also afforded me the opportunity to meet some incredible people who are in the ocean business. And that's what I want to just spend a couple of minutes talking to you about. During my travels, I've shot many documentaries. As Beth said, we always tried to include a scientist. And we do that because the scientists know more about the ocean world than we do, even though we dive in it all the time. They've spent years and years in college learning about the intricacies of that, and that's very important. So one of the things that happened to me when I did a project with a company many years ago is we did several stories on sharks and whales and dolphins and things like that. And we had a scientist for each one of those programs that traveled with us. And these were all young scientists. Most of them were young women in their early 20s or late or early 30s. And I was so impressed with what they knew about the oceans and their drive to protect the animal life that they were so concerned about. So I want to give you a quick example of that. In my travels, I met this girl. She actually took a photo class from me one time. She was 16 years old, and not much older than some of you. And she told me that she wanted to be a photographer so she could be a marine biologist someday. And, you know, that's fine. I took that for granted. I said, great, here's the photo class, and we did what we did. And so she joined the class and finished it and did very well. Then a short time later, I met her. I was teaching another class in the Bahamas, and she showed up at that class. And I thought, this little 16-year-old is really motivated. So then I lost track of her for a while. Circa about another year, not quite a year, I ran into her in a store, and she was doing some menial little task. And I said, oh, Andrea, what are you doing now? And she told me that she was working in this store, putting round things in round holes and square things in square holes. And I asked her if she liked the job, and she said, no, it's really boring, and it doesn't challenge my brain at all. So I said, how would you like to come to work in my office? And your job would be to label marine slides. You'd have to find out what the scientific name is and go through that whole thing. And she did. Now, to make a long story short, this young girl ended up being one of the top marine manta scientists in the world. She's had many, many stories done about her by the BBC and other things, and her job is to travel around the world and study mantas. I mean, how cool can it get? So then I ran into another scientist that we worked with who lives in La Paz, Mexico. Her father and her were fishing one day, and she's 10 years old. And a whale shark swam up near the boat, and it scared her to death. And her dad said, let's get in the water and swim with it. And she said, oh, no way. She got in the water, and she swam with this whale shark. Circa another 10 years, now she's one of the top whale shark scientists in the world. She travels all over the place studying whale sharks. These are the kind of things that you can do if you really want to. Let me just use an example. Each one of you is like a giant sailing ship with a massive sail that can go any place in the world. That's what each person in this room is like, if you think about this. If you have a goal, you know where you're going to go, that giant ship will take you any place you want to go. If you don't have a goal, you're that giant ship without a rudder. You'll sail around aimlessly in circles, never getting any place. Nobody in this room wants to live like that. So it's very important to have some kind of a goal. Mentors are the second most important thing, and nowadays there are so many great scientists out there that can mentor you, and that's one of the things that this program does. It connects you with scientists all over the world through the internet, and it's very easy to do, and it's very fun. And so you'll have a chance to see some of these people, but think about what I said, the goal and the mentorship. The goal is that giant ship that'll go anywhere, but you have to have a rudder, and that's what it takes to go somewhere. So just keep that in mind, and I'm going to turn this over to the next person up and let them talk, but I want you to think about what I said, and as Beth said, there's a lot of room for up-and-coming scientists out there. There are so many great people that are role models today that can help you, and you can watch some of these people, like Sylvia Earle, for example, are great people who have done so much for the oceans. Every one of us should try to do something. Even if it's one small thing, it makes a difference, and one person can really make a difference. But I appreciate you all coming, and thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Now, everybody needs to listen in real close now because there is a very special person who just walked in the door that I'm so pleased to introduce you to. She is my personal role model that I've followed since I was in high school. First time I met her, I was actually in Florida, down south in Fort Lauderdale, and I remember asking her, what was it like to swim with humpback whales? And she just burst with joy and showed me her passion and talked about her experiences with humpback whales and their song. And that moment was one of the main moments that really guaranteed and told me in my heart that this was the career for me, that I wanted to study the ocean too. I wanted to experience that same experience. And so I'm very proud right now to introduce you to a true mentor to all of us and an ocean gem, Dr. Sylvia Earle.
So let's have a conversation. Stick around.
Absolutely.
So have you seen humpback whales?
I
now?
haven't seen humpback whales yet, but I've been able to get in the water with whale sharks, giant mantas, as well as many other cetaceans. It's been a great experience.
Well, it's out there to be done, and any of you can do it. Right, including you, of course.
So Sylvia, can you tell me a little bit about what it was like when you first started diving, when you first started your career in marine science? What was the ocean like when you dove under for the first time?
Well, it was magic. My first experience actually breathing underwater was in the Weeki Wachee River, not far from where we're sitting here in St. Petersburg. It was not with scuba. My next door neighbor was a sponge diver, and his son and my brother, and I was the kid sister who tagged along with a copper diving helmet and a hose that went to a pump up on the surface. Zero instructions. Just put this thing on your head and then jump in the water and breathe. And it was amazing. I could actually breathe with this thing on my head. I thought I would. No diving suit, like many of the sponge divers have, a complete canvas suit with weights on their feet. My feet were light, and I was pretty small at the time, even now. And my feet just kept wanting to float up. Fortunately, the big, heavy thing on my shoulders kept me down. And I thought, we're here to look at the fish. And I looked around, and there were fish, including big garfish with teeth. It's in freshwater, they're like what you imagine sharks to be. But they were just curious. That's one thing that I discovered. And I thought I was there to watch the fish, and I found the fish were watching me. And my first dive with scuba was about a year later, and it was up in the northern Gulf of Mexico. Some of you may know where St. Mark's River is, in the northern Gulf. It was about 5 miles offshore. And this time I had some instruction about diving. I had 2 words: breathe naturally. And I was given the mouthpiece, a tank on my back, and a face mask, and okay, jump over the side and start swimming. And again, it was a miracle. I could breathe underwater, and more than that, it was like flying. You see astronauts walking in space like this. Well, or birds, they fly so easily through the sky. You look at fish, they're just effortlessly move through the water, and suddenly that's the way I felt. And, well, I haven't stopped diving.
Ever since.
I'm still breathing, so I'm still diving.
Awesome, awesome. So tell me a little bit about, for the students sitting here, there were a few that did raise their hands who said they wanted to become a marine scientist as well. What piece of advice would you give them?
Don't let anyone say you can't do that because it's too hard, or because you're too tall or too short, or they think that you can't do it for whatever reason. You're not good at math, or whatever the reason. People will give you all kinds of reasons why you cannot do whatever it is you want to do. If in your heart that's what you want to do, just keep at it. That's my advice. That's really the long and short of it. If it's not marine science, if it's rather play music, that's a way that you can help the ocean, by sharing your love of the ocean with your talent, whatever it is. If you have a way with numbers, you don't have to be a diver to be a marine biologist. It just helps to get out there and be underwater with the creatures. But just be determined. If you find a roadblock, I don't have enough money to do this. I didn't have enough money to study the marine seaweeds of the Gulf of Mexico, so I knocked on the door of some of the local fishermen, and I asked them if I could go out with them. And they thought it was such a cool thing to do that they just let me go with them, and it didn't cost me anything. And there are ways, if you have, the previous speaker talked about having a goal. If it's something you want to do, you'll find a way. You go over the obstacle, or around the obstacle, or under whatever it is, or you punch your way right through it, but you keep going. Even if you fall back a few times, just keep after it. And it's true with music too. If you think you just keep after it and keep practicing, and trust in yourself and realize you can learn a lot on your own. You have the power of inquiry, of being able to find things out that maybe no one has ever found before. There are plenty of things right here in the Gulf of Mexico, right in Tampa Bay, that no one has ever really figured out yet. There are new discoveries right in your backyard. Even in the cracks of sidewalk, there are miracles that you can be the first to discover. So, open your eyes, look around, and realize that life is a miracle. Just think about it. And you have the power in your brain to use that inquisitiveness and discover things for you and for the rest of the world.
Excellent. And on that note, for this next generation that's coming up, what can they really do? Because we know there are a lot of issues facing the ocean right now that humans have caused, unfortunately, but we can also find the solution. So what can they do now? How can they start to help?
Everyone has power, and I think kid power is the strongest, most effective of all, because not only does it affect your life, but you might not think that grown-ups pay any attention to kids, but I was the chief scientist of NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, that has to do with the weather service, with satellites, with life in the sea, with exploration, and a lot of the rules and regulations about the ocean. And when letters would come in from citizens around the country, every one of them made a difference. But the letters that we got from kids were passed around. They weren't just like when you send postcards that are all alike, you just sign it, or you do, anyway, those count. They're voices that are heard. but voices from kids really got heard. They're have a magnified effect on people. Perhaps because most people in positions of power have families. They have kids or grandkids, and they care. And they care about the future. If they don't, they should not be in office. We should get rid of them if they don't care. But those who do care respond, and that's just one way. I know a young woman. She was not a teenager, she was just a kid who started picking up the trash on the beach in Texas. And others saw her doing it. Some of them thought that was pretty cool, and so they started out there helping her pick up the trash. She didn't ask anybody. She didn't, start an organization. She just started doing something on her own because she saw that it needed to be done. And that morphed into a major effort that began in Texas and now has reached around the world. I mean, it seems so obvious, and it's happened more than once with somebody taking the initiative and then others saying, that's a good idea, I think I'll help out. Anybody can do this. Anybody has individual power to be a leader about something that you care about. Just don't underestimate your power and the opportunity that you have now that is more urgent and more, I think, more exciting than ever before because of the things we now know that could not be known when I was a child.
The world is at our fingertips now.
It is. You carry in your pocket access to the Library of Congress. You can talk to people on the other side of the world. You can, people you'll never meet personally, your brain can connect with their brain. And now there's 7 billion brains around the world. Unfortunately, there are also 7 billion appetites.
Yes.
We have to figure out how to maintain a planet that can accommodate all these people, but we've never had a better chance than right now to figure things out. And you, every one of you, can be a part of the solution to a better place. And it's fun.
It is fun. So Dr. Earle, we want to say thank you for your leadership, for the role that you've played in all of our lives in protecting our oceans. And for those of you who don't know, Dr. Earle has just released a Netflix original film called Mission Blue, which tells the story of not only her life, but the journey that she's been through with the ocean. So definitely check it out. And again, we want to thank you for taking time to be with us today.
Oh, thank you for taking time to let me be here.
And please
I'll see you underwater.
So guess what? We have another surprise for you. We actually have Dr. Andrea Marshall waiting for us right now. After we speak to her, we have Heather Heenehan all the way from North Carolina, who is a wild dolphin acoustic researcher. And Andrea is actually going to be coming in from Peru. She's in Peru right now for a conference, so it's really, really exciting to have her join us today. Andrea.
Yeah, I'm here. Hi, how's everybody? Good, that's fantastic. I'm really excited to be with you all the way from South America today. It's always fantastic opportunity for me to speak to the younger generation about what I can do to help influence your decision to be involved with ocean conservation in the future.
What were some of the specific challenges that you faced and overcame to achieve your career goals?
It was so interesting hearing Sylvia Earle speak now. She is actually also my personal hero. She's a woman who lived right up the street from me when I grew up in Northern California. And I followed her every move when I was young. She was an absolute inspiration and idol for me. And at that time, there weren't any sort of role models for a young girl wanting to get involved in ocean research. And so for me, Sylvia was a great sort of mentor and someone who I followed throughout my career. I think it's sometimes very challenging, especially as a female too, kind of trying to pursue a job that's not necessarily very common. Most of your parents would probably want you to become a lawyer or a doctor or an accountant or something like that, and those are great jobs. But if your passion lies with animals or with the ocean, sometimes it can be difficult for you to pursue that career. So for me, it was really important to have role models out there that I could say, well, she did it, so why can't I? And I kind of overcame any obstacle that came in my path, whether, like she said, she didn't have money to do her research. I had to find scholarships to go to school so that I could do this job. But I always just kept in mind that if I kept going, that maybe one day I could be like Sylvia.
What was your motivation to become a marine biologist, and was there a specific moment when you decided that, and when you were interested in the ocean?
Well, I've loved the ocean my whole life. I've been in love with sharks, particularly ever since I was about 5 years old. So I knew right away that I wanted to have some type of a relationship with the ocean, and many of you may feel the same way. But I didn't know how I wanted to get involved. I didn't know if I was going to be a filmmaker, and I met Tom Campbell very early on in my life, and he was a huge influence to me, and one of the reasons why I'm an underwater photographer today as well. I realized that I really wanted to contribute to scientific research, so I really wanted to study the animals and help be able to deliver information that could help preserve them, help protect them, and help protect the habitats, the areas of the ocean where they live. And so for me, I think it was about in high school when I realized that I was really interested in science, that I knew that the contribution that I wanted to make was to become a researcher.
Thank you, Andrea. All right, so we're going to go ahead and move on to Heather. Heather, are you there? So if you can go ahead, just maybe take 3 minutes and talk about your research and the steps that you took in your education to get where you are today.
Sure. How I got to where I am today. I went to the University of Connecticut for my undergraduate degree, and I did environmental science there. And I decided to work at UConn, and I sort of happened upon it, and I kept asking questions. I kept saying, hey, what are you working on? Hey, what are you working on? Until I finally found something I was really passionate about. And all of that experience, all of the acoustics experience, thinking about sound that I had when I was at UConn, helped me when I got to Duke for my master's and now my Ph.D. So I'm in my 4th year of the Ph.D. program at Duke University in Marine Science and Conservation. So I'm out on the coast at the Duke University Marine Lab, where I'm working on my research and finishing up my Ph.D.
And video. Okay. We're going to start with Ms. Garcia's class. If we have a student representative to come up to the camera and ask your question.
Hi, my name is Christina Mendoza from High School in Garden Grove. And I wanted to know, did your family support you in becoming a marine biologist?
So my family was really supportive of me. I was very lucky to have an incredibly supportive family. My sister is also interested in science and marine science, and so together we were sort of, partners in crime, and we were able to explore the ocean together. And one of the things that I've thought about recently is that not only my family were very supportive, but my friends were too. And I found great friends and great communities, really of women, of smart and confident and independent women who were also interested in science. And I think having or finding those people who are supportive of you and who value your passions and what the things that you're interested in is really important. And to find those people can really help you stick with it even when it's challenging.
I had a slightly different experience, if I'm on still. I didn't necessarily have a family that really understood what I wanted to do. They weren't really divers. They thought sharks were kind of scary. And a lot of my friends weren't divers and had never really been underwater or really wanted to go underwater. So for me, it was kind of a lonely experience for a while. And that's why I really clung on to mentors and role models like Sylvia Earle, because I knew that there were some people out there, and I was going to find a community. I was going to find people that understood my passion at one point. And it really was only when I got to college that I found people who were like-minded. And just like Heather said, once you do, you just feel this incredible connection to these people because they understand what you're talking about. They understand what's in your heart. So whether you have someone that's supportive, as in Heather's case, or or whether you are kind of going at it alone at the moment, don't be afraid to keep pursuing your dream, because ultimately you'll find that community, and ultimately you will find those people that can share the experience with you. So just never give up, on that passion.
And my question's more shark-based. We just want to know why are sharks more attractive to sound and to movement?
Well, I'm not sure that they're more necessarily attracted by anything, and I am going to go out on a limb and just say that sharks rely on a lot of different senses, vision, smell. They have a lateral line system where they can perceive, as you mentioned, movement around them, and they also can hear. And so I think one of the things that's so great about sharks and what's so interesting about sharks is that they have developed all of these senses, so no matter what environment they're in, whether they're in water that's not clear, very turbid, and they can't see well, or whether they're in an area that's noisy and then maybe it masks the sounds of other fish and things, there's always going to be some sense that can pick up on what it is that they're trying to find. So if they're trying to find prey item, if they're trying to find food, they're going to rely on one of their senses no matter what the conditions are like. And that's one of the things that's always fascinated me about sharks, is that they have evolved in such a way that they're kind of like masters of their own environment. They have so many different skills that they're really fine-tuned to any sort of living condition.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you.
So next I'd like to move on to Mr. Grabowski's class in Ontario, Guelph, Ontario. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Camilla. What motivates you to keep going, and do you think we can save our oceans and by extension our species?
For me, what motivates me is that, yes, I honestly believe that the ocean and our fate are linked. And I really feel that if we don't pay more attention to the health of our oceans, that it is going to affect the future of our race, as you mentioned. But I do think that there's hope. And one of the things that Sylvia mentioned is that there is no better time than now. We have the technology, and we have so many things at our fingertips where we're going to be able to save the ocean if we want to. So the matter is not can we, the matter really is do we want to, and we got to just get together and do it. So it's not about not having the ability to do it. It's about getting out there and actually making it happen.
We'd like to move on now to Mrs. Brooks' class in Hemville, Montana.
My name is Cindy from Hemville School, Montana, and this is our entire class. We live so far away from any ocean. Why do we need to worry about the ocean issues, and what kinds of things can we do in Montana to help protect our oceans?
It's a good question. I can take a little crack at it. So I think why you should care about the oceans is that 71% of our world is covered in ocean. It is so important to our lives and our food and our climate and some of the things that we do, even very far from the ocean, have an effect on the ocean. So if you think about trash that ends up in rivers as one example that eventually can make its way down to the ocean and have an effect there. So those are some things that our whole world, just like we're connected on Skype, on Google Hangout right now, or connect via Skype, the world is so connected, and when the things that we do, even in very landlocked places, have an effect all around the world.
My name is Jack. I'm from Canterbury School of Florida. My question is, do you know why great manta rays spin when they run into something?
That's a great question. Manta rays literally have a blind spot in front of their head. So sometimes when they run into something and they get kind of scared. And for a manta ray, its way of trying to get out of that situation is kind of do a circle, like a flip, a roll. And sometimes when they do that, they end up getting entangled, kind of like what you saw in that video when I was with Danny in Ecuador. And so, usually they run into things when the thing comes straight on and hits them in that blind spot. But that's a great question.
Okay, and last but not least, we have one more question coming in from Santa Barbara.
Hi, my name is Richard, and I'm from Elementary School 6th grade. We would like to know why you picked a marine animal that you guys are studying.
The question is, why did you choose to study the animal that you are currently researching?
So I chose to study spinner dolphins, well, because I found some people who were studying them, but I was really excited to study this group of dolphins in particular because they might be in trouble. So we're a little bit worried about all of the interactions with humans that these dolphins have at a time when they should be sleeping. And I'm sure you can imagine, well, when you don't get enough sleep, probably not so good things happen. I get kind of cranky and not very pleasant. So we want to understand the effects of all of these human interactions on the dolphins that we study. So I've always loved dolphins. If you asked my mom, she would have said, oh yeah, Heather's going to study dolphins someday. So it's really no surprise to anybody that I'm doing what I'm doing.
Actually, I think we're probably just about out of time at this point. But we'd like to thank all of our wonderful speakers. Let's give them a round of applause. We'd like to thank all of the teachers who made this possible today for us to interact with all of you great students out there. We hope that we're leaving you inspired and that you will take the next steps toward maybe a career in marine science, but most importantly for you to follow your passion, whatever that might be, for the betterment of the entire world. So again, thank you to everyone, thanks to the Ocean Gems team, and most importantly as well to the Blue Ocean Film Festival for having us here today, and we hope that we can continue something like this in the future around the world. So thank you guys again, and have a wonderful day.